to eat a low-fat diet in grains and vegetables and to replace butter with margarine. Unfortunately, this often makes the problem worse. Margarine is a vegetable oil-based product designed to compete with butter in the marketplace. It's notorious for high levels of TFAs. In an 8-year Harvard medical study of 85,000 women, margarine was linked to heart disease. Dr. Mary Enig, a world-renowned expert on dietary fats, analyzed the TFA content of some 600 foods. She noted that Americans eat between 11 to 28 grams of TFAs a day, or one-fifth their total intake of fat. This is a lot of plastic to put in the body. Essential fats. Essential fatty acids are fats that our bodies are unable to manufacture. We must therefore acquire them from dietary sources. These fats fall into two groups, omega-3 and omega-6 EFAs. Omega-6 EFAs are readily available in grain products, meats, and many commonly used cooking oils such as corn, safflower, and sunflower. Omega-3 EFAs are found in leafy green vegetables and oily fish, and comparatively small quantities are available in walnuts, eggs, and animal meats. Again, the ideal ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids is 1 to 4. Omega-3 fatty acids are vital to the development of a child's brain and nervous system and for the maintenance and repair of the adult brain and nervous system. The studies in which mice were timed through a maze show that eating a diet low in omega-3 fatty acids led to a dumbing down effect when compared to those fed adequate omega-3s. While there are a number of behavioral and learning disorders associated with a lack of omega-3 fatty acids in the diet, or an imbalance between omega-3 and omega-6 EFAs, other currently recognized disorders include heart attack, stroke, cancer, obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, asthma, arthritis, lupus, depression, schizophrenia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, postpartum depression, Alzheimer's disease, chronic inflammatory disorders, reduced cellular detoxification, the saturated fat method, politically correct nutrition, meaning what the government would have you eat or what the typical college-educated dietitian would have you eat, is based on the assumption that we should reduce our intake of fats, particularly saturated fats from animal sources. Fats from animal sources also contain cholesterol, presented as the twin villain of the civilized diet. Cooking with oils. Always use unrefined organic oils. No heat. Flaxseed oil, borage oil, hemp seed oil, cod liver oil. Low heat. Safflower oil, sunflower oil, pumpkin oil. Medium heat. Sesame oil, pistachio oil, hazelnut oil, olive oil. High heat. Coconut oil, ghee, palm oil, lard. When baking breads and muffins at temperatures around 325 degrees Fahrenheit, the moisture keeps the inside temperature under 212 degrees Fahrenheit. When frying, always put oil into a cold pan and turn the heat up gradually. Although hydrogenation of fats began in 1912, coronary heart disease was rare in America before 1920. So rare that when a young internist named Paul Dudley White introduced the German electrocardiograph to his colleagues at Harvard University, they advised him to concentrate on a more profitable branch of medicine. The new machine revealed the presence of arterial blockages, thus permitting early diagnosis of coronary heart disease. But in those days, clogged arteries were a medical rarity, and White had to search for patients who could benefit from his new technology. During the next 40 years, however, the incidence of coronary heart disease rose dramatically, so much so that by the mid-50s, heart disease was the leading cause of death among Americans. Today, heart disease causes at least 40% of all deaths in the U.S. If, as we have been told, heart disease results from the consumption of saturated fats, one would expect to find a corresponding increase in animal fat in the American diet. Actually, the converse is true. During the 60-year period from 1910 to 1970, the proportion of traditional animal fat in the American diet declined from 83% to 62%, and butter consumption plummeted from 18 pounds per person per year to 4. During the past 80 years, dietary cholesterol intake has increased only 1%. During the same period, the percentage of dietary vegetables, oils, in the form of margarine, shortening, and refined oils increased about 400%, while the consumption of sugar and processed foods increased about 60%. The much maligned saturated fats, which Americans are trying to avoid, are not the cause of modern diseases. If they were, and if the saturated fat or cholesterol myth were true, none of us would be alive today because saturated fat was the primary energy source for most of our ancestors. Studies of North American Indians, Eskimos, and other tribes suggest that as much as 80% of their daily caloric intake was from fat, most of which was saturated animal fat. Checkpoints for healthy fat consumption. Good sources of quality fat include olive oil, coconut oil, butter, palm oil, butter. Raw is best. Ghee, good if you are allergic to casein, the protein in dairy. Organic, grass-fed animal fats, lard, tallow. Fish oil, be careful of the source. Seeds, especially flax seeds, avocados and nuts, raw or organic. Always choose organic foods for safe fats. Remember, many industrial chemicals and commercial farming chemicals are fat soluble and are stored in the fats of animals, fowl, fish, and plants. Fats to avoid. Trans fatty acids, hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils, vegetable oils. The high temperatures used to produce such oils will destroy the nutrients in the oil. Fats from conventionally raised animal fish. When purchasing EFA supplements, contact the manufacturer to determine the carrier oil if it isn't listed on the label. Soy oil is commonly used because it's cheap. The carrier oils are often rancid and draw the antioxidant qualities from the good oil in the capsules. When you open a new bottle of EFA supplements, bite one capsule open to taste and smell the oil. You would be amazed at how often brand new bottles contain a batch of rancid oils. Avoid eating roasted nuts because the roasting processes cause the fats and oils to go rancid, increasing free radical damage to your body. In other words, they make you age faster. Avoid non-organic dairy sources. In many cases, milk is loaded with the same sort of fat-soluble chemicals you find in meats. Use the resources in this book to see if you can have raw butter, raw cream, and milk shipped to you. If you can't get raw and you can't find organic, avoid dairy. Avoid any and all deep-fried foods unless you prepare them yourself and you use lard, coconut, or palm oil. Even then, frying and deep frying should be kept to a minimum. Always use heat-stable fats and oils for cooking. Avoid using the polyunsaturated oils commonly recommended by diet dictocrats. It's simple, best to never eat from fast food restaurants. They use low-quality foods and fats, many of which are highly processed. Mothers must go out of their way to assure the children get adequate omega-3 EFAs. Whatever it takes, feed your children organic food. Sugar. How much sugar are we consuming? As recently as 400 years ago, refined or simple sugars, with the exception of small amounts of honey, were not available to man. We ate only naturally occurring whole foods that provide complex carbohydrates, which convert to energy relatively slowly when consumed as natural food sources. This is because they get tied up with simultaneously occurring fats, proteins, and fiber. Producing simple or refined sugars such as packaged white or brown sugar from sugarcane or sugar beets required so much work to manufacture that only the rich could afford to buy them. About 100 years ago, the average yearly intake of simple sugars was only about 4 pounds per person. Today, the average American or Englishman consumes 150 to 170 pounds of sugar per year, and those in most industrialized nations are not far behind. It's said that for every American who only eats 5 pounds of sugar each year, there's one who eats 295 pounds per year. This statistic is hard to deny since about 60% of the U.S. population is now overweight or obese. Effects of sugar. If sugar were nutritious, being addicted to it would be analogous to being addicted to carrots or some other food source that delivers adequate nutrition to be considered healthy. In reality, processed sugar is not only a drug, it's a poison. In 1957, Dr. William Coda Martin pondered, when is a food and when is it a poison? His working medical definition of poison was any substance applied to the body, ingested or developed within the body, which causes or may cause disease physically. Any substance which inhibits the activity of a catalyst, which is a minor substance, chemical, or enzyme that activates a reaction. The dictionary provides an even broader definition for poison: to exert a harmful influence on or to pervert. Dr. Martin classified refined sugar as a poison because it has been depleted of its life sources, vitamins and minerals. What is left is pure, refined carbohydrates. The body cannot effectively utilize this refined starch and carbohydrate unless the depleted proteins, vitamins, and minerals are present. When we eat sugar in the absence of the nutritional factors necessary to compensate for digestion, metabolism, and elimination, incomplete carbohydrate metabolism results. Pyruvic acid accumulates in the brain and nervous system, and the abnormal sugars accumulate in the red blood cells. These metabolites interfere with the respiration of the cells. They simply can't get sufficient oxygen to survive and function normally. In time, some of the cells die. This interferes with the functioning of the part of the body and is the beginning of degenerative disease. Daily intake of sugar produces a continuously overacid condition. Consequently, minerals are required from body tissue such as bones and teeth in order to buffer the acidic environment and rectify the imbalance. In order to protect the blood, so much calcium is taken away from the bones and teeth that decay and general weakening begin. Excess sugar eventually affects every organ in the body. In the liver, excess sugar is stored in the form of glucose. Since the liver's capacity is limited, a daily intake of refined sugar soon makes the liver expand. When the liver is filled to its maximum capacity, the excess glycogen is returned to the blood in the form of fatty acids. These fatty acids are then taken to every part of the body and stored as fat in the most inactive areas: the belly, the buttocks, the breast, and the thighs. When these areas are completely filled with fatty acids are then distributed among active organs, such as the heart, liver, and kidneys. These organs begin to slow down. Finally, their tissues degenerate and turn to fat. The whole body is affected by the reduced stability, and abnormally high blood pressure results. The autonomic nervous system is affected because processed sugar is a powerful stimulator of the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. The circulatory and lymphatic systems are invaded, and the quality of the red blood cells begin to change. An overabundance of white cells occur, and tissue creation slows down. When you ingest processed sugars without adequate amounts of quality fats, proteins, vitamins, and enzymes, your blood sugar levels will become elevated. The body responds by releasing insulin, a hormone that rapidly reduces blood sugar levels. Unfortunately, the feedback mechanism that tells the brain that blood sugar has returned to normal is slow, commonly resulting in a blood sugar crash or hypoglycemic state. The body must respond to this immediately. If not, your brain will run out of blood sugar to operate on and you'll go into a coma. This emergency situation results in the release of powerful stress hormones, one of which is cortisol. In the midst of all this, most people respond to the hypoglycemic or low blood sugar state by drinking coffee or soda, or eating something sweet. Meanwhile, cortisol has triggered the release of stored glycogen from the liver to quickly raise the blood sugar levels again. This results in an inflow of sugar from the liver as well as from the sweet thing you just ate or drank, starting the whole process over again. Many live their lives on this roller coaster ride all day. every day. This creates a big problem because after a while your body can become insensitive to insulin. The first sign being an accumulation of fat around the middle, giving your midsection an apple-like appearance. This result is what is commonly called Syndrome X and is the first major step toward becoming diabetic. The constant hormonal roller coaster ride caused by the typical sugar-laden junk food diet overworks the adrenal glands. They finally become exhausted from producing excessive cortisol. When the hormonal system becomes disturbed and unbalanced due to the stress of eating processed sugars, numerous other pathological conditions soon manifest: degenerative disease, allergies, obesity, alcoholism, drug addiction, depression, and behavioral problems. Our ability to resist disease progressively decreases as processed sugars displace the nutrient-dense foods we were designed to thrive on. The chances of acquiring one of the following diseases or side effects skyrockets: kidney disease, liver disease, atherosclerosis, coronary heart disease, attention deficit disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Behavior problems, violent tendencies, overgrowth of candida, yeast and fungi, cancer, tumors are enormous sugar absorbers, bone loss, osteoporosis, tooth decay, chronic fatigue syndrome, food intolerance, numerous psychological disorders such as schizophrenia, neurological disorders and associated pain syndromes, colon cancer, and diseases of malnutrition. Artificial sweeteners aren't the answer. Aspartame has resulted in more complaints to the FDA due to side effects than any food additive ever approved in FDA history. Artificial sweeteners tell your taste buds that sweet stuff has arrived, which to the brain means nutrition has arrived. When the artificially sweetened drink or food reaches the small intestine, the receptors find no nutrition. A message is then sent back to the brain saying we've been tricked, there's no nutrition here. The apostat, the part of the brain that triggers satiety, sends the message to keep eating because we need nutrition to help process all this fake food and run your body. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the ways we ended up with fat, starving people across the world today. Some artificial sweeteners have also been found by researchers to be neurotoxins that can damage the brain and nervous systems. Sugar alternatives. Honey. Use only unprocessed, unfiltered honey. You can't miss it because it has chunks of beeswax in it, and you can't see through it. Used in moderation, this type of honey is supportive of good health and immune function. If honey has been pasteurized or filtered, you're not eating a food, it's a byproduct. Avoid cooking with honey as it's not heat stable. Stevia is an herb and is about 1,000 times sweeter than sugar. Additionally, stevia is known to assist in balancing blood sugar levels, making it ideal for anyone coming off of caffeinated beverages or weaning themselves from sweets. Fruit. Use and season fruit or dried fruits to sweeten foods. It's a good idea to rehydrate dried fruits and berries by soaking them for 8 to 12 hours before using. Then bring them to a flash bowl to kill any unfriendly bacteria, parasites, or insect eggs that may have been laid on them during the drying process. Only use unsulfured dried fruits and berries. Below ground vegetables. By adding properly cooked, or when possible, raw underground vegetables, you often get a beautiful natural sweetness to salads and other foods. For example, a cooked organic sweet potato, shredded raw carrots, or beets are quite sweet and make great additions to salads and sandwiches. Turbinado sugar and sucanate. These are two acceptable forms of sugar as they're minimally processed and raw. Raw date sugar is also acceptable, but again, sugar is sugar, so consume in moderation. Checkpoints for becoming a sugar detective. Read labels. Food manufacturers know there's an increased awareness with regard to the negative health effects of sugar to throw you off. They use big words to hide total sugar content. For example, instead of just listing sugar as the first or second ingredient on the list, They'll include words like sucrose, maltose, dextrose, fructose, galactose, glucose, arabinose, ribose, xylose, deoxyribose, lactose, trehalose, and the like. In reality, all are sugars. Seeing "-ose" at the end of ingredients listed on the label of any food is an indicator of how much sugar the product contains. Quite often, you'll see as many as 5 or 6 different types of sugars in one product. When you add all the sugars up, sugar is frequently by far the greatest source of calories. Beware of the term natural. A natural sugar is still sugar. You must be aware of how much sugar you're consuming, particularly with regard to your primal pattern diet type. Avoid all sweet drinks, including juices that are not freshly juiced. The